government's always controlled our content.
The fight for freedom.
We've just never paid attention.
Freedom of speech.
There's a very small group of people that influence all the companies that we watch.
That's why we have Q. Patriots everywhere. Stand at the ready.
Q is completely baseless. It's the rantings and ravings of anonymous people who we don't know. It may be multiple people, it may be different people, it may be one person. Q has not foretold anything, despite the fact that many people who are believers in Q will try to convince you through different signals and small things that you might not have picked up that it actually is all true. You know, it's not true.
This is insane.
QAnon offers a constantly shifting way to view the world as it's happening, which means that it's very easy for people who believe it to then discard any attempt to reason with them and explain why they shouldn't believe it. It's almost seeped into the groundwater of the internet now.
Google lied to you. Google, Facebook lied to you.
You know, for a long time, reporters have been trying and have been openly wondering, who is Q? Who is this anonymous person making the post?
It's one letter, but it spells out a bizarre conspiracy theory with President Trump at the center.
Obviously, the president knows what QAnon is.
Well, I don't know much about the movement other than I understand they like me very much.
Almost equally as important as to whoever Q is who runs these sites like QMap. People like this are just as influential in spreading the conspiracy as Q themselves.
Q is a pretty interesting case study in how you move a fringe idea into the mainstream.
I had a personal curiosity as to who was behind QMap before. You know, I really felt that it warranted kind of a deeper investigation. The place to start was to go and talk to him. So I rented a car and I drove out to New Jersey. My name is William Turton. I'm a cybersecurity reporter at Bloomberg News.
I'm Joshua Brustein. I'm a writer for Bloomberg News and Business Week magazine. I'm one of the two writers on this story about qmap.pub. Jason Galinas is a pretty normal-sounding guy. He is a dad in New Jersey, 3 children, lives in Berkeley Heights, which is a town about an hour outside of New York City.
Jason, in many ways, was your typical American. He got a degree. He, went into working in the technology departments of different banks. He was a senior employee at Citibank, where he managed over 100 employees. And, the last major project he worked on there was an artificial intelligence project at Citi. Jason Galinas also ran one of the, if not the biggest QAnon conspiracy website.
Like many people who are now deeply into QAnon, Jason seemed to express the beginnings of interest in these kind of theories during the Obama administration.
We were able to speak to friends, one of whom told us that, about the time Obama was elected, Jason described Obama to him as the Antichrist.
He seemed to have a lot of anger towards the Obama administration and began to explore some unconventional, shall we say, beliefs. One of them related to the idea that Hillary Clinton was involved in sex trafficking.
We don't know for sure if Jason believed in Pizzagate, as it's formally known, but friends told us that he believed in this idea that powerful Democratic officials, including Hillary Clinton, were involved in the sex trafficking of children. This all goes back to Russian hackers leaking John Podesta's emails. You might recall those were posted on WikiLeaks, and users on the image board 4chan started reading those emails and decided that the word pizza meant children, and kind of worked themselves up into this idea that in the basement of a pizza shop in DC were secret tunnels leading to Congress where they were sex trafficking children.
One of the big surprises of the presidential campaign was the explosion of fake news on the internet. Fantastic tales that some believe to be true.
At one point, far into the conspiracy theory, someone actually showed up there with an assault rifle and shot it inside the restaurant before realizing that the basement he was looking for that would have presumably held the children did not even exist.
28-year-old Edgar Welch was arrested in Washington Sunday afternoon outside Comet Ping Pong, a popular family pizza parlor. D.C. police say Welch fired at least one round into the restaurant floor with an AR-15 rifle like this one on his Facebook page.
He recently pleaded guilty, but this became a huge phenomenon which kind of set the stage for QAnon. So Q drops, as they're called, are posted to this website called 8kun, which is formerly called 8chan. They're formerly posted on 4chan, and they can come daily, a few days apart, or multiple times a day.
In October 2017, a anonymous user who called themselves Q posted a message saying that Hillary Clinton would be arrested, that this would lead to planned riots, and that this would kind of be the beginning of the apocalypse. Now, this sounds really weird. It wasn't actually all that unusual for 4chan at the time. There were a fair number of posts from people purporting to be high-level government officials revealing secrets. And the QAnon account was one of them. There was an FBI anon, there was a CIA anon. And for whatever reason, this is the one that took off.
This is a movement where you get information. That's all it is. It's up to you how you want to take it. Follow the plan, trust the plan, the Great Awakening.
You know, there's a lot of reasons why someone might believe in QAnon, and it actually, is why people believe in conspiracies in general. I think now more than ever, there's kind of distrust in the media, in this shared set of facts.
It's all about control. Look at the science. Show me the science with a mask, because I'll show you science. The virus goes right through the mask.
The coronavirus probably drove people deeper into their kind of silos and their holes. Many of the followers will sometimes talk about how they've been alienated from their friends and family, but will say, I have my Q family.
There are a handful of Q aggregators, including QMap, which have taken the Q drops and posted them in more friendly web environments, devoid of some of the pornography and other things that are on the websites where the original Q drops are. So QMap was started in April 2018.
What QMap did that was so interesting was that it took it one step further. Not only did it aggregate the posts, it also kind of wrote out these themes and players, so it was really easy to navigate. And this, to me, was one of the biggest revelations in my reporting. When we found deleted posts from Jason Galinas, where he explained on Twitter how he designed the site like this intentionally to make it as accessible to as many people as possible. As he called it, he was onboarding normies into the conspiracy. If you wanted to read more about the secret pedophile cabal, great. Or if you want to read about the secret plot to take down Mike Flynn, for example, Trump's former national security advisor, boom, there's a theme you can go to and read all about it. In recent weeks, 2 researchers at this startup in the UK called Logically published this really interesting and fascinating report that outed Jason as the person behind QMap.
So Logically AI is a small operation that looks to expose disinformation through basically internet forensics.
We use a lot of data streams. It's then up to us as the investigators and the users to pare that information down, look for trends, look for patterns. My name is Joe Ondrak. I am the senior investigator at Logically.ai. We are primarily a fact-checking company, but we also do investigations and editorial into disinformation and misinformation online.
And they began looking into QMap in the late summer because they felt like it was a way that people were becoming radicalized and wanted to figure out who was behind it.
There was a URL with an email address in it, and from there we were able to find Google Chrome store page for qmap.pub. And the QMap app that he was running, that had since been deleted by Google Play when they realised they were starting to crack down on QAnon. Because he was monetizing these apps, he had to register them under a company, which led us to Patriot Platforms LLC. And obviously, if he'd registered for an LLC, there would be filings with names attached to it that we could then explore. So we pursued open business records, we looked at those, which gave us the name Jason Galinas.
I saw the report. I was like, this is really interesting. I mean, this is fascinating. But, they hadn't gone to Jason for comment. It was kind of just put out there on the website. The first thing I did was I rented a car and I drove out to New Jersey, and I found Jason in his front yard. He was holding a wheelbarrow while some landscapers and laborers around him were doing work on the hedges and the lawn, and I felt really nervous. I walked over and I said, "Hi, Jason, I'm a reporter from Bloomberg. Just wanted to ask you about this report that's been published that says that you run this website." He was a little evasive. He kind of walked away from me, and I was able to kind of get him to continue talking, but never denied running the site, and eventually said that QMAP was a patriotic movement to save the country. Eventually his wife appeared at the front door, who kind of beckoned him inside. I went and knocked on his door a second time, really in the effort to try and give him as much opportunity to comment or clarify as possible. He didn't respond. Once I was in my car, multiple police SUVs arrived and informed me that Jason had called the police.
Once Jason knew he was found out, he took down his entire online presence as well as his wife's online presence and pretty much disappeared from the internet. QMAP.pub also came down and was basically just a couple of links to other QAnon aggregators.
After our first article that came out that noted Jason was an employee at Citigroup, the company placed him on paid leave. It's unclear where Jason is now, but Citi actually fired Jason Galinas after almost 13 years at the company. The reason they gave for firing him is that working at Citi is a really highly regulated place, and you have to disclose to the company your income outside. And he was in theory making money off this QAnon website, off Patreon, and he never disclosed that to his company.
QMAP coming down will probably not have a huge impact on the viability of the QAnon community. At this point, it is large enough to be pretty adaptable. You've seen it pop up in many places overseas, and it really serves as a sort of proxy for extreme distrust of any institutions. And Q has served as a pretty effective vehicle for that kind of feeling.
I stand before you tonight, honored by your support.
I think it kind of goes back to this idea that people are disillusioned with kind of what's happening in the world and are more likely to believe conspiracy theories. I think that's what makes Q appealing. It's finally an answer to all the weird and strange things that are happening in the world.